Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, December 8th, 2025. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by the very dapper Dan Rubin. He's dressed well. Oh, no, you know what's funny? I almost even texted you, because I was pulling this The Foundation shirt out. I almost even texted you. That's my first instinct. Always go with your first instinct, kids, whether it's a standardized test or if you're thinking maybe a coworker might be wearing the exact same shirt as you. I almost texted you, said, hey, man, no The Foundation shirts today. But if Brian Schottenstein sees this show, he's going to be very happy. Good to see you as always. Let's just start right out of the gates. What do you think about Ohio State's draw?
I like it better than last year.
Right.
Considering there was an extra game and, I thought Oregon and Texas were really excellent potential opponents who turned out to be. I don't get too geeked out about the playoffs because of matchups wise, because at least the last couple of years, to me, Ohio State at its best is the best team. I'm very confident going into the playoff, more confident now than I maybe would have been had they blown out Indiana or won that game, given the extended time and chance to get healthy and not have everyone kiss their tail as much for 3 and X weeks. Get healthy, by the way, also get healthy. Can I keep saying that? Because when you have the most talent, if everyone's healthy, you should win. So are we going with Texas A&M or Miami? What's your vibe on that?
A&M or Miami? Who would I rather play or who I think is going to win?
I'm just saying, if we're going to talk about the draw, we got to talk about who they think is going to play.
That's the thing. Well, yeah, and we'll talk about if they are able to win that game, and Georgia's able to beat probably Ole Miss. Although Ole Miss Tulane could be a decent game. I don't really like being on Georgia's side of the bracket, but I do kind of I go back and forth on this because A&M, I was a big believer in them, and then I watched them, just absolutely just lay an egg, and I was just like, geez, maybe they're not nearly as good as I thought, because I saw them like in bits and pieces this year because I'm so busy on Saturdays. Other than Ohio State's 2 bye weeks, like I don't get to watch, which is funny saying this because I do watch a ton of college football. I still don't watch as much as I'd like to because I wasn't working on Saturdays. I just would be watching college football for like 17 hours. But I don't know. I go back and forth on it. Miami started the year really strong, and I was a believer in them. They ended the year really strong because they weren't really playing anybody. But I don't like Carson Beck. So I'm pretty confident in this game. I think I'd rather Ohio State play Miami just for the fact that the game is going to be in Texas. Now, as you know, I mean, being a Cowboys fan, I mean, like Dallas, that area of Texas is actually more Longhorn territory than it is Aggie territory.
Dallas?
Houston is more, well,
right.
It's still, yeah.
You're right.
Dallas is definitely more Longhorns. I mean, there's still plenty of A&M fans there. I mean, but listen, we had to play Texas there. That was pretty much like a home game for Texas last year in the Cotton Bowl. So, but still, that being said, it's still only 3 hours away from their campus, roughly. I'd still much rather play Miami because the game is in Texas.
I hear you on that. I guess if that's the case,
I'm also going to be rooting for 10 overtimes. Root for a 10 overtime game between those two in their play-in game, or whatever you want to call it, first round game.
I'm very confident. There are times when you're preparing for a game and you say, "Oh, you don't want to look ahead." I'm very confident that Matt Patricia and his genius brain can look ahead to all these opponents in the next 3.5 weeks and have a real plan for whoever comes up. So, as long as they are healthy. If you tell me our guys are healthy, I'm not saying this word over and over and over again. And we talked about this a while back. Like last year was for me the first year where I thought, you know what? Player for player, if everybody plays their best, I think Ohio State has the best team. We've talked about this. There was always an SEC team looming. There was always a Clemson looming that I thought would at least be a trade punch scenario where you probably have to play your best and get a couple breaks. I'm not sure I feel that. So nothing happened over the weekend, either for Ohio State or what I saw from others, that makes me think Ohio State is not in control of its own destiny, which is a good place to be, in my opinion. And by the way, guess who agrees? Vegas.
Nice segue. That's exactly what I was just about to say. For those that don't know, I'm sure a lot of you do, Ohio State's still the betting favorite to win this thing. So now has the gap closed considerably between Ohio State and Indiana? Yes, but right, it's Ohio State, then Indiana. What was funny is until something happened yesterday, Notre Dame had the 4th best odds to win the national championship.
Wow.
They no longer have the 4th best odds, Dan. Now let's get into that. We're going to get back into mostly Ohio State stuff. We're going to talk, is Gabe Van Sickle the new starting right guard? Stuff like that. Most frustrating part of the Big Ten championship game, they're going to get back to the CFP. But Notre Dame taking its ball and staying home, I kind of see it, but it just comes across so pouty. It's just not a good look.
Well, I think it's a terrible look for this reason. Why do people go to Notre Dame to play football, Dave? To make the NFL, okay? Really?
Yeah.
And you're taking away another audition for them against great talent where they can improve their draft stock. So in that respect, I think it's BS. If I was a player or a parent of a player, I would be furious for that reason. As for the playoff stuff, I was traveling a little bit, so I got to take in some content from other spots. Hearing people argue about who should be in the college football playoff and the 2 out of context teams they put in there is a goofy argument. You're not going to get to a point in this argument where we feel comfortable. Once you set up a system where 2 of the teams you know for a fact are not as good as the other teams, you're already chasing your tail. You can't expect to start that way and finish with a bow wrapped on it. So, I mean, I accept the argument. We've talked about this, Dave. I don't even remember. We did a show like probably a month ago of who we thought were the real threats. And part of it was because I think we both thought Notre Dame was going to be higher rated than anyone else thought, and it made for good content. We were right on the same point, and we weren't alone. Most people think Notre Dame is a top 5 team. Vegas, I do think them being 4 for Vegas is a little bit of trying to get the public to, because Notre Dame is such a popular team, or what they call a national team. They're going to get bets regardless. Same.
Yeah, it's like Ohio State. That's why I said when I talked about the betting odds earlier, I recognize the fact that Ohio State's brand name is factors into the equation.
For sure.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I get it. And here's the thing. Here's where the committee screwed up. I don't think they got it wrong yesterday, like everybody's saying. What they did was they never should have had Notre Dame not only ahead of Miami, but so far ahead of them, right? So like that's what makes them look bad. It was like they had Miami. It wasn't like Notre Dame was like 1 spot ahead of Miami going into the last week. They had been 3 spots ahead of them. Then they were still 2 spots ahead of them on Tuesday, Dan. So 6 days ago, they were 2 spots ahead of them. Neither team played. Nothing else really happened that affected their resumes. And then, bam, Miami jumps them. And again, it would have been one thing if you're a Notre Dame fan. It's like, oh, we were ahead of them by 1 spot, and they jumped us. Even though we didn't play. That doesn't make any sense. They were 2 spots behind them, and they jumped them.
Yeah, but no one really knows how they rank them.
They wanted to make sure an ACC team got in, and once Virginia lost, they're like, we're not putting freaking Duke in. The hilarity is that Duke winning allowed the Dukes to get in, James Madison. I think the whole thing's hilarious. But they just screwed up by having that big of a gap between Notre Dame and Miami, or even having Notre Dame ahead of Miami anyway, because then they had to go and get egg on their face yesterday, and everybody's like, this doesn't make any sense. It's hard to argue the contrary when the committee's over there like contradicting what they just did Tuesday. But I still think it's funny. That's where I come down. When we were at the selection show yesterday, me and my buddy Scotty, I said it's just funny. That's my biggest reaction is it's funny that Notre Dame got left out.
It never made sense, though. That's the whole point. Like, you have a silly premise, you answer it with a silly premise, you finish it with a silly premise, and everyone wants to argue about the premise. There's no solid ground to stand on. No one even knows the rules. If you watch the show, the people on the hosts, Herb Street and those dudes, had a miscommunication over what the actual rules were. And then the guy who came on, Yurachek, I think his name is, came on and basically said, yeah, that's what we did. We waited till they were close by. And then no one knows the real protocols behind closed doors. And then they try and argue it. It's a slippery slope.
He even had the guys go back. He said he had the committee go back. I doubt anybody actually did this. Maybe one person on the committee did. He said he had the committee go back and rewatch the Notre Dame Miami game. Like that was your deciding factor. They were just trying to. That's what I mean. That it's I know exactly what happened. They wanted to make sure the ACC got a team in, and Notre Dame got some, and they wanted to make sure Alabama got in because Alabama was not going to be the first team out 2 years in a row. Should that matter? No. Should Alabama have gotten in? Probably not. I would have been shocked if Alabama had missed it because that would have been 2 years in a row that Bama would have been the first team out, and I just didn't see them doing it to him 2 years in a row. So
here's my vibe on this. Alabama, I believe, was the number 1 seed in the SEC championship. Was that correct? Georgia, I'm pretty sure they were the top seed.
Because they beat Georgia.
Correct.
Leading into that game, you're right. Yeah.
Correct. So in terms of, so you're in at that point. I mean, I'd go back and look. I don't think any team that's ever been the top seed, well, we've only done this for 2 years, probably the top 4, when we even do the top 4 that the SEC can get in. Here's how I view the championship approach, and I thought I'd use a football analogy. In a game where, let's say your team gets an interception and they're running it back, and during the interception, you get an illegal block in the back. You still get the ball, but you get penalized a little bit. That's how I feel about the championship games. You can't be taken out. It's your ball, but you can be hurt if you don't play well. So Alabama was in. They got they got pounded by Georgia, so they should drop a little bit. But to me, you can't drop out. The line is hard once you can't. What we do with these championship games going forward, who knows? Obviously, subject of much debate going forward in terms of their true value. But I don't think you could have kept Alabama out after they finished as the first seed and lost to Georgia, who they were going to put 2 or 3. So I don't have a problem with that, really.
Yeah, and it was the least surprising thing in the world that I had a lot of people telling me, "Oh, you're good. Saturday night. You're crazy thinking Alabama's going to get in." I'm like, listen, I'm not arguing, and they just tell me why that they think Alabama shouldn't get in. I'm like, I'm not arguing with your logic. What I'm telling you is what I think will happen.
Sure, 2 different arguments.
Alabama will make it, and they did. So hey, I get one right every once in a while. So, but I had a lot of people saying, "How can you say Alabama's going to get in?" I'm like, because the committee's going to put them in. That's why.
Well, they were already in. That's the point.
Exactly. And I know they got smoked by Georgia. I read a story today. Notre Dame had more rushing yards in the SEC championship game than Alabama did because Alabama had -3 rushing yards. That was a good line from a Notre Dame writer who's very upset about not getting in the playoff. We would be too. I mean, it's the fun thing about sports. But
sure,
let's move on. I know some people in the chat like, can you guys talk Ohio State football? Yeah, we can do that. We can just since you guys asked, we'll do that. Gabe Van Sickle, do we have a new starting right guard? I would think now's the time to do it. You have 3.5 weeks. He went in there. I don't think Tegra went back in the game. That was bad. There's been good-ish Tegra and bad Tegra and kind of in between Tegra. That was like the worst I've ever seen Tegra. That was like worst case Tegra. The week after, I think he had his best game. What's that say about Michigan? No. And I give Indiana credit. I talked about that a lot on the postgame show. I give Indiana a ton of credit. We'll get into what went wrong, but I do want to get your thoughts on that, Dan. I say yes, now's the time to put Gabe Van Sickle in there. Not only did he replace Tegra, I thought Gabe played well.
Yeah, Tegra was awful. I hate this. I mean, look, let's just call it straight. I'm not trying to be negative about the team. We have a great team. I think we're going to win the national championship.
I agree.
The idea that we didn't have certain players who struggled, and it does look like my guy Signetti knew exactly where to go after us on offense, knew exactly where to go after us on defense. If your team is loaded with first-round draft picks, don't target them. They didn't. The guys who got targeted on defense have struggled. Let's just be honest about that. Styles Jr. and Matthews have not been tremendous during the second half of the season. Jermaine's been foul prone, kind of taking the mantle over from Igbinosun a little bit. It looks to me like now people are avoiding Igbinosun a little bit, that he's got the mitts on.
Oh, yeah. IGB's worked himself into a first rounder, in my opinion.
Yeah, close to it. I saw Dane's got him already, top 50. Once you get in the top 50 and you're a prototype, you have a real good chance to move up. And let's not, as much as whatever you think about Davison Igbinosun, his body type is literally prototype. And mentality. Absolutely. Very tough guy.
I think that'd be a good late. If I had my team won't be picking late in the first round, but if you're like a playoff team picking late in the first round, you need a
Packers pick.
He's a plug and play because he's not. that he's not a young guy, and he went to Ole Miss. He's from Jersey. He went to Ole Miss for a year, came to Ohio State. He started at Ohio State now for 3 years, won a national championship, and is about to win his second. And you're right, man. He's tough. He is the absolute prototype, as you said. That's the perfect word for it. 6'2". A lot of times those tall, lanky corners, although he's ripped. If you see it, he likes taking his shirt off, and I don't blame him. I like for interviews, sometimes Jerry will have to come over and say, "Yeah, you got to put a shirt on." I would never wear a shirt. He's just absolutely – pretty much all those guys are like that. But, like, so he's – when I say, like, you know, those long kind of skinny, he's not really skinny, but like a lot of those guys with that body type aren't really too active in the running game. That's not IGB. He's going to come up and pop you too. Yeah, I think that'd be a great – if I had a late first-round pick, I think that'd be a great late first-round pick.
Maybe like the Packers pick?
Yeah, like
who has that?
Somebody who's smart, like, and is going to be, like, drafting, like, 29th, we'll get him.
Dallas has the Packers pick. That's why I say that.
Oh, that's right, because of Parsons. That's right. Yeah.
And also, anyway,
IGB. Yeah,
IGB could very easily be a Cowboy.
So Gabe
Van Sickle, we started
go.
with Tegra.
Yeah.
I assume here's another thing. I would make very few assumptions about how they're going to look because there's a really big gap. That's a really different scenario. Starting next week or starting in 3 weeks, when you're healthier, when you have time to plan, this could all be nagging injuries. It could all be related to that, and you could heal from that. Tegra's best has been good enough. That's the thing. He's just been very erratic. Like you said, he was awful in some games. Michigan game was the offensive line's best game in how many years? So that leads me to I do believe there was some hangover effect to that. I'm not saying it's a justification for the loss.
And all the distractions. And the distractions with Hartline. We'll get to Hartline, guys. Don't worry.
I'm not as much on that one.
And then if it was one thing, I would have said, nah, come on. Ryan Day can walk and chew gum, but it was the Michigan game. Like, in a good way. But, like, man, you're just riding high for a while. They were late getting home because of the weather. So every hour matters. And then you're just feeling great. Maybe you're not as focused and hungry as you were. You're so relieved you beat Michigan. Then you have to deal with, Hartline out of nowhere gets the USF job. He had been interviewing for jobs of that. Then they thought they were past that. And then the USF job came open. And that happened quickly, the same day as signing day. And then you have all the drama on signing day with Chris Henry Jr. and Legend Bay and all of that. So, like, you add it all up. I do buy in Ohio State was distracted. I do buy in that Ohio State maybe wasn't as hungry as Indiana. And I also definitely buy in that Indiana is freaking legit, and I give them a lot of credit.
I think it's fair to say, Dave, that our staff may have been slightly obsessed with Michigan. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and rightfully so.
So let's talk So from a perspective issue, I think it's fair to say that Cignetti was probably obsessed with Ohio State after last year.
And he got to play
every single thing he did for the last 360 odd days or whatever it was. Actually, it's more than that because we played him during the regular season. Was built to beat Ohio State, and it worked. And I'll say this: there is a mercurial aspect to our last two losses that I somewhat cannot explain.
The final score. I know.
The play calling in certain situations. I didn't emerge from the Michigan game last year or the Indiana game this past weekend saying, "Oh my God, we just got whooped by a better team." Oh my, we could never beat them under any circumstances.
Right.
That's just not the vibe. I'm sorry. I know that there's like this referendum on value. What does the Big Ten mean? And now we're rationalizing because, of course, everybody would say if given the choice 2 out of 3, you would have taken the Michigan game and the national championship and said, you can have the Big Ten title. We don't even need to go. We'll just take the 0 if that was the choice. Now, I do agree. We beat ourselves, as William said there. William Shreby, the Shreebster, says there in the chat. 2 or 3 different calls. I think they win the game.
That 4th and 1 is just going to stick in my craw for a while.
It makes no sense. In this era, maybe in 1973 when no one went for it on 4th down, in this era, when you're just going to tie it. And by the way, when you tie it, you know what you have to do? Usually kick another field goal. Who wants to do that? Who wants to ask the guy to make 2 of them when he can't make 1?
Go for the first down. It's 4th and 1. If for some reason you don't get it, people are saying, well, yeah, if they did a QB sneak, Julian would just kneel down. It's like, come on. They had some good quarterback sneaks against Michigan the previous week. I think that was a little flukish, although Julian needs to do a better job on sneaks. I get it. They need to go for it there on 4th and 1. If you don't get it, okay. Then they're at their 9. You have 3 timeouts left, and they're not going to be doing anything. Well, it is Signetti. You never know. Signetti might have thrown the ball deep. But, probably Indiana there with a 3-point lead. They're not going to do anything crazy. And even if they do, Ohio State's probably going to get the ball back. Might have to burn all 3 timeouts. Is going to get the ball back with plenty of time, only down 3. But what's probably going to happen there, I'm sure the odds would back this up. The analytics would back this up. What's going to happen there if you're at the 9 and it's 4th and 1? I bet the odds are like you go for it there. Before you even know what's going to happen, the odds of you winning that game are high. Sure. You're at the 9, you're going to get the first down, then you can start to bleed the clock. You're going to, with Ohio State, though, they're not a good red zone team. They're not a good short yardage team, but that's still a high percentage you're going to get the touchdown there. And then you're up 4, and then they're probably going to be calling timeouts to try and get the ball back, and then you're able to bleed the clock down, and then they're down 4 and have to go the length of the field against your defense. Maybe with them out of timeouts, go the length of the field against this defense. I just don't get it, man. And
you can't get a yard, Dave. You can't get 1 yard. We're the team that can't get 1 yard. Come on, man. We're the Bears now. Come on, man.
We're not.
Get 1 yard.
They need to be much better. No, that's what I'm saying. They needed to go for it there. And Dan, even if you told me ahead of time, somehow that you could have told Ryan Day, Fielding will 100% make this field goal. 100%. And it probably wasn't, even with him, it's probably like 85%. We saw what happened in Michigan last year, and no one really talked about it because we were just like, oh, thank goodness he didn't miss. But the first field goal against Michigan this year, he made it by like that much. So he's he's just not good with the short kicks.
They're terrible.
But here's my point though. If you even said 100% you're going to tie the game here, do you go for it on 4th and 1, or do you just accept you got a field goal, almost like an intentional walk in baseball? I still would have gone for it.
Sure.
I still would have, even if you and by no means was it 100%, as we all know. So that was just, and I do wonder if it was the Michigan game or if it was the playoffs, if Ryan Day might have handled that differently. It's just
you're back on it too. It didn't have any effect on them. They're still a 2 seed. It doesn't even matter. Just go for it.
It's just, yeah, exactly. It's not like it's going to knock you out of the playoffs. If you, that's going to bother me for a long time, but
it doesn't make
not that
sense.
long, because if Ohio State wins the national championship, it'll be a blip on the radar. But
here's what I do think will happen. I would not be surprised at all if in the transfer portal, a running back shows up here who actually runs behind his pads and weighs more than 230 pounds. Just for this. I don't care who it is. Go find me a guy who you can hand the ball to and look, it might be Bo Jackson. Why don't we see? I'm not going to get fired up about this now because it doesn't matter, but I would just give the ball to Bo. What's the big deal? And also, you should be able to get the sneak too. That's embarrassing. So the only thing I will say is it does seem like there is an epidemic in football with 1 yard. Ben Johnson, to me, in the NFL, I'm sorry, is as good a play caller as is on planet Earth right now. In fact, if you just had a total emptiness and someone said, who's the best play caller right now? Ben Johnson would get some votes. Would you agree?
Yes.
They lost on this play yesterday in a big game. They didn't run it on 4th and 1 with a quarterback, whose strength is running the ball. So I don't know if people have just spun themselves around mentality-wise. I don't know if Indiana did something on film.
It's been a common theme for Ohio State, though.
No doubt.
One thing about the Ryan Day era, it's like they've been explosive offensively and they've been very good overall, period. But I'm often more confident if they're throwing a pass from the 20 than if it's like 1st and goal from the 3 that they're going to score a touchdown. It's like that's their touchdown zone. It's like if they get down to like the opponent's 20, even the 25, I'm like, oh, look out here. They could be going that's an easy throw for Julian. Then you get and that's kind of how it's been. That's how it was with CJ. That's just how it's been. Will was the one exception to that rule because Will could run the ball, and they had the best tailback tandem that I've ever seen at Ohio State.
Yeah, I don't. Bo's plenty good running back. To me, I'm past that. I get it.
We need 2 though. He is
Fair.
good. And not only did we have two, they were vets.
Yeah, I mean, around the goal line, we should talk about this. Judkins had some kind of homing device on the goal line. It's just like, you want to fight me to get in the end zone. Once he got inside the 5-yard line, I would just be like, touchdown. Sure, but I don't think – I think that statement is accurate. We had better running backs. Judkins was a beast. I don't think it was enough that we should now not be able to do it at all.
I agree. I think both things
it doesn't make any sense.
Will Howard was that it's so huge to have a quarterback that's a running threat. I mean, he didn't even get that many rushing yards last year because why risk it like that much? But you got a lot of rushing touchdowns. You got a lot of first downs.
I'd be up for doing what quarterback. Did you happen to see who the Houston Texans tush push quarterback was? And also the tush push. Short yardage has just gotten goofy, man. Everyone goes for it on 4th down now. There's tush pushes. There's bootleg passes when I don't understand it. So I assume, do you see who the Texans used as their tush push quarterback? By the way, he didn't get in.
I think I did see that. I even heard Jalen Hurts, talking about how people are kind of catching on to the tush push. No, I didn't. Who was it?
Cole. The tight end, Cole from Ohio State.
Oh, yeah. Nice. That's awesome.
And they still went offsides. It didn't work, and they kicked the field goal.
Oh, it didn't work. Oh.
He got it. They were offsides.
All right, let's talk about Kate
Stover.
I'll go Stover Meats, man. Stover Farms. Well, he's that guy when Brian Hartline, who we're going to talk about next, he said there was a fight in the locker room who would be the last one standing, and he said me, and then we're saying, and then I don't think he was joking. Brian's very confident, and they're like, of the players, and kind of thought about it, and I think we said Kate Stover. He's like, yeah, that'd be a pretty good pick right there. Kate Stover's a tough.
Here's what he said. He said that Stover and Eichenberg would be back to back as roommates and fight their way out. But the guy we chose as to fight his way out individually, Mike Hall.
Mike Hall, that's right. Mike Hall.
After he chose himself, you're right. South Florida head coach Brian Hartline chose himself to emerge.
He did. So let's get into this. So I put this out there many times this year, and no one said anything about it. I think people just accepted it. That Ryan Day was calling the plays in big moments this year, right? Now, was Ryan going to ever say that at a press conference and throw Brian Hartline under the bus? No. Dan, you know better. You talk about this all the time. Like, it's funny. And then Ryan was asked about it after the Big Ten championship game. He said, no, Brian's been calling the plays. He also said in that same press conference, Brian's going to continue calling the plays. And now we're hearing Brian's not going to be with the team. He's going to probably just stay at South Florida and sever ties for now, at least with Ohio State. And so Ryan Day said at the press conference, no, Brian's been he's been calling the plays. So people that take that at face value, he wouldn't throw Brian under the bus. And have been saying, see, he was calling the plays, you were wrong. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, I have these sources who definitely know telling me, no, Coach Day's been calling the plays. Coach, you can even see it for yourself. Go back and watch the game. He has a play sheet right there. Now, was Hartline calling some of the plays this year? Of course. I'm not saying Ryan Day was calling every play against Grambling here. Big moments and in big games, Ryan Day was calling the plays. Was Hartline heavily involved? Yes, of course he was. But Ryan, nothing really changes here. So, and you got to be careful not to, my friends out there, you got to be careful not to take what coaches say at press conference at face value. Right, Nick Saban? I won't be the Alabama coach. One day later, Alabama coach. Okay, so we got to take what coaches say at press conferences with a grain of salt. We have to be able to read between the lines and maybe trust people who are getting good information. That's all I wanted to say about that.
I trust Dave Biddle when I'm trying to get inside information, so I'll defer to you on this. I would wonder also how last year went. I'll bet Ryan had some saying last year too. The idea that it was just Chip Kelly being like sitting in a room by himself with no input, right, masterminding the whole thing is probably not accurate either. My guess is, every coach has their specialty that got them to where they are. And Ryan Day's he's an offensive mastermind. I'm sure people aren't happy with me using that term today. But yeah, so I don't think it's a big deal. I certainly am not worried about him calling plays going forward. So I think that's one of those things. And what you said is accurate, Dave. And people don't want to hear this. I said something about this almost a decade ago, and people freaked out. When a human being is in front of a microphone and they know there are cameras there, there's a decent chance they're not going to give you the whole truth.
There you go. Somebody in the chat said, see, Day said Hartline called the plays. You see this? This is what I dealt with on I just need to ignore people on Twitter. Yes, Day said Hartline called the plays. We just covered that. Just like Nick Saban said, it won't be the Alabama coach.
There's plenty of examples we can give.
I was going to say, I keep using that one because that's
a good one.
That's
a real good one.
That's the funniest one. But I could use like thousands of examples if you want me to. Like, yeah, and listen, I'm not calling Ryan Day a liar. Okay, it just goes with the job. Whether you're a head basketball coach, head football coach, you're going to a press conference, you're not going to tell the world everything you're thinking. You're going to be getting asked questions. Then unless you just want to say no comment to everything, you're going to have to fib. I call it fibbing. It's fibbing.
Is it even fibbing?
I mean, if Ryan Day is saying like that he's not calling any of that, which I don't think that's actually what he said. People are trying to play gotcha. See, Ryan Day said Brian Hartline's calling the plays. You were wrong. I'm like, okay, sure. If we could bet on it, I would bet your house on it. But we can't bet. We can't do that. Maybe you can now. FanDuel, can you do that? Oh yeah, you can. Okay. But yeah, it's just one of those things, man. Like people are just like, see, gotcha. He said he was calling the plays. What's he going to do? Throw Hartline under the bus and be like, yeah, I was calling the plays. Once again, offensive coordinator in name only. Good luck in South Florida. No, of course he's not going to do that.
I also don't kind of understand what even the premise of the discussion is. Do you think Signetti just sits there on the earphones all the time? He's like, hey, you guys just do what you want. You know what? I'm going to have a sandwich. Everyone has say in this stuff. Right. It's not the idea. They game plan it all week. Most offensive game plans are not scripted, but largely scripted. Meaning in this situation, I'm going to do this. That's just kind of to me, it's just kind of a blame tactic when things don't go well. No one was gathering to credit Day when they put up a bunch of points against Washington or something, you know. So this is just when you lose, you get turned upside down a little bit, and people want to see the insides of what you're doing. The idea that a head coach of a college football team is going to get up there and give you trade secrets that could affect in any way they believe a future outcome, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
I remember going into the 2019 season, speaking of people calling Ryan Day a liar, when he would be at press conferences saying this was in camp in August of 2019. So not even during spring ball, August of 2019. And you'd ask him about the quarterbacks, and he would say with a straight face, it's still an open competition between Justin Fields and Gunnar Hoke.
Aye.
Even this year, do we really think Ryan Day didn't know 100% that Julian Sain was his quarterback entering camp? Do we think he was even 99%? Or do we think he was 100? Because I would say 100% he knew, right?
Yes.
What did he say throughout camp when asked about it?
Dave, you could read it. We could do this about anything.
Julian and Lincoln. It's dead even between Julian and Lincoln. So my friends out there, he doesn't make him a liar. He has to do it. It goes with the job, okay? He's fibbing, and that's fine. You have to fib. You don't want your coach telling the media everything. And I'm saying this is a media guy. Now, do we have ways of finding out? You're damn right we do. But
sure.
He's not going to go out there and tell the world.
I mean, anyone who's ever been in charge of anything, I'm not saying there are plenty of people on there who are the bosses of their own business and have had a bunch of people work for them. You don't go into the meetings and you're like, you know what? This guy sucks. You're better than him. You're going to play over him. They don't do that. Okay. Anyone who's been in charge of anything knows this. You don't get this. Part of being in charge is you get paid because you got to take some on the chin. And like Mr. Bucknuts said, if you're in the public facing guy, you got to wear down the public's fist with your chin. And that's sometimes what you got to do. It doesn't really, there's no material effect from what we're discussing here. He's going to do what he's going to do. He's going to call the plays. He's going to have the last say on it. And by the way, that's why Ryan makes what he makes. That's why his record is what it is. He got here because he's an offensive guy. So the idea that he would then sit back and let a less experienced guy take everyone's future into their hands solely, that just doesn't make any sense. I don't think that happens anywhere.
I've also got to stop trying to be the idiot police, and explaining things that any reasonable person already knows.
Twitter takes that out. If you're a Twitter guy,
Yeah, I do.
Get caught in the Twitter
I like
bubble.
it a little. I mean, I love Twitter. I like interacting with people. But as soon as someone shows you they're an idiot, you should just be like, all right, I don't need to explain to you anymore. You're either trolling or you're like a really, really dense person.
The site's called
I don't
Bucknuts.
need that. Exactly.
I go back to this every time. It's nuts. It's not, it's nuts. So grain of salt.
And don't be the idiot. I'm giving a lot of advice today to my friends out there. Don't, and I struggle with this. You're not the idiot police. I struggle with that. Sometimes I feel like I am the idiot police. It's like, I'm not the idiot police. I'll let people be idiots. If they want to think that everything a coach says at a press conference is 100% true, have at it. I'm sure you're doing really well in life. All right, I'll leave it there. Appreciate you, Dan Rubin. Appreciate all of you guys. Another pretty live audience, pretty large live audience. And Dan, you're going to be with the recruiting boys tomorrow, the Poobah and Garrett.
We'll have a deep dive from Mark on the game. Buckeye in the Sky will come out later today. It'll have I'll tell you this, we put every sack on there. So if you want to know why the offensive line broke down, that's the lingering effect of that. And I'll say that's what I would leave everybody with. If Ohio State shows up and their offensive line plays well in the playoffs, I think they'll win the title. Keep in mind, go look at Indiana's offensive numbers and look what we did to them. Now, there was very troubling specific plays, but if they give up 13 points for the rest of the season in every game, they'll be the champs.
You said this earlier, and I'm with you. I think Ohio State's going to win the national championship. I do. I'm confident. Am I like 100% confident? No, I think that'd be silly. I think that'd be way over the top. But I like their chances a lot. All right. I like the chances of tomorrow's Bucknuts Morning 5 being another awesome episode. Thanks, Dan. Thanks to all of you guys. We appreciate it very much. That's fine. If you're still basking, that's great because Ohio State's going to win the national championship, in my opinion. Go Bucks.